In this lesson, we're going to write our very first Cypress test. As usual, let's check out the branch associated with the lesson. Up until now, we've been looking at the examples that were generated automatically when we first ran Cypress, so let's go ahead and blow those away and create our very first integration test. We can call it todos.spec.js. We can see in our Cypress runner that todos.spec is created here, and if we click on it, it'll find no tests in the file. So let's go ahead and write one. We'll start with a describe block and describe our to-do application. Inside that, we can create an it statement. We can say it loads the page. And now we'll just visit it with cy.visit at the root of our application. When we visit the page, we'll see that Cypress loads our to-do app. Describe and it are provided by the Mocha testing framework, which you can tell if you hover over them with your IntelliSense. Cypress itself is built upon a lot of existing best practice libraries like Mocha and jQuery, so you'll be familiar with some of the nuts and bolts. So let's learn how to use our cy commands. We've already seen how to use cy.visit. The next thing we'll learn is cy.get. Let's get the first item in our to-do list. cy.get, we pass in the selector to-do list, which wraps all of our to-dos. Then we've implemented to-do items as list items, and we can use nthchild 1 to select the first one. For assertions, Cypress includes the chai library. If you're familiar, you can use should have.text hello world. If we head back into Cypress, we can see that the test already ran and that it passed. We can step through each moment in time. For instance, when we first visited the page, after we received our XHR request to the backend to load all our to-dos, when we targeted this first list item, and we can see what was targeted here on the screen, and then we can see our assertion, which targeted this list item and expected it to have the text hello world. If we want more contextual information, we can pop open our console and see a little bit more. We can see, for instance, the command was assert. We expected the text hello world. That's what we got. And we can see our subject, which was this jQuery selector of the list item. We should also probably check that the test didn't just pass because of a fluke. Let's go ahead and change this to Hello Mars and reopen Cypress. We'll see here that the assertion hangs a lot longer this time. The reason it does that is because it's waiting for the text Hello World to change into Hello Mars. This is part of what makes Cypress so reliable. You don't have to write any code that sleeps or waits until an appropriate moment when the repaint has happened. Cypress handles all of that for you. Let's go ahead and undo that. And we'll keep chaining some more shoulds off of this to see how that works. So let's say it should not have the CSS class completed because we haven't yet completed our to-do. Back in Cypress, we see that chaining like this works. Both assertions ran, one after the other, and both passed. Cypress also bundles jQuery, so we can use the jQuery method find or similar methods to navigate our UI. For instance, we can find the toggle, which is a child of this list item, and then we can say that it should not be checked. Back in Cypress, we can see the way this gets targeted. For instance, first targeting this first list item, and then we can see it targeting the toggle and asserting not checked on that. It's important that we run this check on the toggle, because a toggle has a checked or not checked attribute, but the list item does not. To see this example in action, let's switch to the second list item, which has the text, "Good night, moon." We know that this does have the class completed because we already completed the to-do. But what happens if we still say it should not be checked? Reopen Cypress. We expect the toggle not to be checked, and we see this fails. However, if we run this same assertion on the list item and not the toggle, the test will pass. The reason is because the list item doesn't have a checked attribute in the first place, so of course it's not checked. This is why it's important to double check that the inverse assertion of any assertion you make does in fact fail. Since we know the inverse fails in this case, we can retarget the toggle and make sure that be checked passes. And since it does, we know we've targeted the right element.